All right, everybody, welcome back to part 3 of the series that we're doing, Tactics NT, the 0 to 500 puzzle ratings. Definitely great if you are new to chess or new to chess puzzles. A great way to get into that habit and learn a little bit of the tactical side of chess. So we're on chess.com right now. We're looking at a rating range of 0 to 500 in their custom ability to check. We are looking at all themes, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing here that we have is white to move. Let's go through the basics again. Knight is in a great position to look very scary, but not actually capture anything. Our pawns are not able to capture anything. Who doesn't like drawing arrows? Our bishop is going to be blocked in. This knight is not able to do much. We're able to come out here. This rook isn't able to capture anything either. So if we can't capture anything, let's go ahead and start looking at possible checks. We don't necessarily have many, right? We can't get in there with the knight. We have this available check with the rook. Can very easily get out of that in a number of different ways. But let's take a look at what else we might have. So if we don't want to look at this, the other option is to come all the way down, and the king cannot capture this because it is protected by the knight. And if the king can't capture it when it is being checked, it will obviously have to move out of the way. It won't be able to move this way because of the rook. It won't be able to move this way because of the rook. And it won't be able to move this way because of the knight itself. If it can't move, and it's in check, and it can't capture it, we have a nice easy mate in one. All right, white to move again. What are our possible options? Well, let's look at some captures. Right, we have a couple things here. We can come in and grab this pawn. We can do almost nothing with this knight, but it is protecting our wonderful rook down there. Do we have any other captures that we might be able to do? If you found queen h7 checkmate, congratulations. An easy way here, while everything looks very scary, in terms of black being all over our side of the board, being able to bring the rooks in, we can easily get out of that by mate in one. All right, from here, definitely an interesting couple moves from both white and black. Not sure what was going on here, but we have a great check that is going to lead to a quick ending in this particular instance. So if we're looking for our checks, what do we have? Looks like this is our only check available. And then how would black respond to that? So let's say we go ahead and give queen h5 a check. We can't block it with the knight, the bishop. We can't run away. So the only thing we have available is going to be this g6. And if we go ahead and assume that they are going to play g6 to block it, what do? Well, we can just go ahead and capture it. And then the same issue they had before, where they're not able to block it with the knight or the bishop, is still a problem, except this time they don't have anything to get in the way. An easy mate in two for us. All right, lost the bishop there, not a problem. We can regain our standing in this game. So let's take a look real fast at what we have available. Not necessarily great. Everything else has not been developed enough to be able to attack. We can make this knight run away. Probably go ahead and capture here because of this. But if we take a look, very similar to before, we're eyeballing this pawn. We're eyeballing it twice, and there's no way for them to capture it. We can go ahead, capture it ourselves with checkmate. All right, black to move, black to move. So let's take a look at what we have available. Queens are staring at each other. Definitely a scary moment. This is going to also potentially be a problem for us. While it is protected, we don't necessarily want to give away a rook just for a bishop. We have this pawn that is ready to promote if ever given the opportunity. And let's see what we can do. So this might not be our best opportunity because we're going to drop that bishop, or that rook for that bishop. What else might we have instead? So if we look at checks, we have this available, which goes ahead and gets captured. But this rook down here on e8 that was in danger from this bishop can go ahead and jump into the party and deliver the final blow for a checkmate. So we'll go ahead and capture there. All right, white to move. So in this situation, we want to take a look. We obviously do not want to have any back rank action come in here. We want to be aware that this is potentially going to be a problem for us. We have this passed pawn down the side. We want to make sure that there isn't any danger there. So having said all that, what do we have available for us if we can't go ahead and capture anything except for this pawn? Well, we don't necessarily have any checks either, but we can go ahead and potentially threaten both this bishop and this pawn. The bishop won't be able to move because it will be pinned into the king. If we move this down, we're threatening that check. We're threatening to capture this bishop, and if they defend it, we're able to capture this pawn over here. Let's go ahead and move that down. They did not decide to protect the bishop, so we're able to go ahead and capture that bishop ourselves. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we're able to still attack this, as well as put some pressure on the king. All right, moving on. So we definitely just got forked here. We're not able to protect the rook. We want to make sure that we're able to still get back into the game, and I think that you'll find that we can do that quite easily in this particular position. This was obviously protected by the bishop, not allowing us to capture it with our queen or our king. So taking a look at what we have available for captures, we have this available, potentially not a great idea. We have this available, which looks pretty good, right? We can't capture it. They're going to have to move out of the way. Same thing here. We're forking the queen and the rook. And again, it can't be captured. So obviously that's the right move, right? It is not. So we want to make sure that if we find a good move, we potentially just look for a little bit of a better move. So while it would be great to win this rook or this queen, I think that we can go ahead and just capture with the queen to be able to win the game. All right, 377 level problem might be slightly overestimated there. All right, so in this case, we are being threatened with this pawn that might promote. When it comes here, it will be with check. We will not be able to capture it. If we slide over, we're still going to have a relatively bad time. We are also very close to promoting ourselves, so we want to be able to take a look to see what's going on there. If we were to push, and they were to push, we can then move over. We have this coming back down to give us check, and then they lose that pawn. So definitely something that is a possibility for us. We don't have any checks ourselves, right? We can't move this up. But if we were to handle this with a queen, much easier time for us to go ahead and move forward. Let's go ahead and run, Forest, run. And as we see here, we can't capture this pawn. We don't want to move here because when they promote to a queen, it will be over. This is being protected. So we'll go ahead and move in. If they move down, we're able to move up. If they try and protect it in any other way, we can go ahead and get a queen first. All right, white to move. A lot of things going on here, with some serious worry about pawns being promoted into queens. Okay, so with that being said, what do we have available for us? So we don't have this as a check. We can't capture here. We can't capture here. Kings can't move that fast. So our only other check available is right here. So if we do that, where does the king go, right? So we'll move here. King is in check. Can't move here, 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 or here because of, should I say, or here, because of the rook and the king in play. So if it is only able to move to these squares, what does that do for white? Well, because we are already here with the rook, we don't necessarily have to worry about the promotion of this pawn because we can just come back and grab it. So if we move here, and the king moves away from these pawns on this side, our king can actually come in and pick some of them up. So let's go ahead and kick that king over onto the H file. Comes in this way, and now we're able to bring our king in into the mix. Right? We'll go ahead and capture the queen because it's undefended. The king can only move here, or bring the pawn up. If they were to move that pawn up, we can go ahead and just win the game right away. All right, white to move, white to move. We'll take a look at any captures that we have available. Doesn't look like we have anything, right? We have this pawn over here that comes with the check, and that is it. We have to be worried about this pawn. Definitely have to be worried about the fact that our king is in a very precarious situation, being blocked here as well. So if we were to have to move, it would be quite difficult to do. We talked about this check over here. Nope, not that way. We talked about this check over here where we're capturing that pawn. The king can very easily move away from it. Nope, the king can very easily move away from it. We can come back and we're kind of in the same situation. So what are some things that we might be able to do other than that? Well, we have this rook that has not yet jumped into the other end of the game. And if we were to move here, the king only has one legal move at that point. The king would have to move right here. So once the king has moved there, do we have any way to continue the checking, right? Because otherwise we're in some serious danger ourselves. The king moves in. Do we have any new move with the rook already on e8? And we do. So if we come all the way over to g8, it is being protected by this knight. And at that point, the king will not be able to, it is already in check at this point, can't move here or here because of the rook, and can't move here because of the pawn. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And you'll see it right here. Rook to g8 is checkmate. All right, moving on, moving on. White to move. So again, we'll do a quick check. Quick check. Nothing on our pawns or our knight. The rook is not able to capture anything. The queen is able to capture, and it's able to capture this pawn. So because of that pawn, maybe not as much as we want to be there. We want to make sure that we may have something better in play. So what are our checks? What are our checks that we have available? So we have this. It really just captures it, not really that big of a deal. Do we have any other checks? We do. So we have this check. Go ahead and capture it, or capture it. We have this check. So not capturing, but we can move pawn in front. Sure, we can go ahead and do it again. King moves away. King gets blocked. Not necessarily great. We have here. King just captures itself, or bishop captures the queen. So if those don't work, do we have anything else? I think you'll notice because of that rook, we have this right here. That queen is able to not only gift check, but defend all of the available deep squares that the king has. Nice little mate in one on that. All right, black to move, black to move. So again, we're going this way. This bishop is protected, but we have to be very careful of this square over here. We also have to be very careful of this. You know, we're concerned about this pawn that's coming down. Our king can't necessarily jump in the way. So we have some things that we have to be careful of. So if we were to not capture something but check, what do we have available for us? Well, if we come all the way down here, we give a check. King can't move here. King has to move this way. So we'll come down, the king will move up. And at that point, do we have any checks available to us from there? And we do. So we'll come all the way over with the rook, still protected by the bishop. At that point, the king can't move here, can't move back, can't capture either one of these. It has to move out of the way. So if we come down, the king moves up, we move all the way over, And now the king moves out of the way. What does that leave us open to? That leaves us open to capturing this bishop or this rook right here. And we are going to win this endgame. So I'll go ahead and come all the way over. We'll go ahead and capture that rook. All right, sort of a similar situation as the last game, or the last puzzle. We have an interesting little position that we can play around with here. So we'll take a quick look with the pawns. Nothing that we're going to be able to do. We can capture this pawn. It very easily gets captured back. We can capture this, although it does get captured right back. So is there anything else that we might be able to do? Maybe any checks that we have available? The knight isn't going to be able to do anything in that regard. We can come over here and give a quick check to the king. Captures or captures, not necessarily great. But we do have another move. We have this available to us, which is going to check the king and expose the queen. So we'll go ahead and do that. It's going to expose the queen. We're able to sacrifice the rook for the queen. And we, again, are likely to win this endgame. We do have to be careful, but we should be able to get out of this in a way that we can win. All right, so now that we are in this position, we're in a very similar position the last few puzzles that we've been doing. How can we potentially get some points back, some pieces back into the game? Well, not pieces back into the game. It's not Bug House. You're gonna need to just get more even material on the board. So in this particular case, we might want to be looking at trying to win either the knight or the bishop, but you have a better position available for you. So nothing that we can capture. We can't get to this bishop. We can't get to this knight. Our captures are this pawn, loses quite quickly, loses quite quickly. Capturing this one also loses quite quickly. So if we don't have those, maybe we should look at checks. So we took a glance at this and it would come with check, but it loses pretty fast. So let's get rid of that option. If we come here, the pawn instantly captures us and we have a bad time. If instead we keep going with the queen and we're able to check here, both of those are blocked, can't go there. So the king is forced to move back. And if the king is forced to move back, we're able to just move the queen down, blocking both available squares. It's essentially a back rank checkmate. Take a quick look. And we're able to get that in very easily. All right, moving on. So we've talked about this a couple times. This is a position you don't necessarily want to be in, but something that new players who don't necessarily know their openings have a tendency to accidentally open themselves up to. We don't have to worry about captures here. Really, there's only one check that we want to look at, and unfortunately, it's something that is far too easy to fall for. Definitely a 100 level problem in mate in 1. Nothing can jump in front, and you're kind of stuck. All right, getting a little bit more advanced here. Let's take a look at what we have available. So, we are down quite substantially. So we want to make sure that we are as forceful as possible. We're very nervous about something coming down. There's some pieces that we've got a handle on. Want to make sure that we are being as critical as we can here. So what are our possible checks? Well, we can put our rook here. Not necessarily great. The only other option that we really have is going to be this. So it gives a check. They can't capture it, and they can't really block it because it's a knight. Where would the king move? So if we come here, the only move for the king, because we're blocking this whole row, is going to be over into this corner. Now that they're over into the corner, do we have any new checks available that we didn't have before? So because we're moving this knight from here, we know that this square is going to be something that the knight can either protect or jump to on their next move. So with this king over into the corner, we can go ahead and bring our rook in to that exact same spot, just doing a little swap. and at that point everything is hit. So we'll go ahead down here, bring that rook in, and we're able to capture quite easily for checkmate. All right, moving on. So, always a fun position to be in. Bishop versus knight in the endgame, especially when a lot of things are opened up. You're able to get around the board much faster. But we're definitely in some danger here. We have a lot of things that are potentially being grabbed. We want to make sure that we're not doing anything to lose the game ourselves. Kings are kind of stuck. Can't really go anywhere that is super useful for them. Let's take a look to see if there are any checks available or any captures. So our king can't capture anything. Our pawns that are even close are blocked to things. Can't go anywhere. But what could we potentially do to sort of solve the fact that this knight is hitting both this pawn and this pawn? Well, we could move them. We could kind of kick them away and force them into making a move. Unfortunately, if we force them into making a move, they can go ahead and capture this. We're forking a couple more things. We're going to keep sort of losing pieces. But we also have this available to us. So if we move here, we're going to pin this knight to the king. And at that point, they're going to have to make a move where we are going to end up winning some pawns or being able to trade down and be able to run the board on one side or the other. So let's go ahead and pin that knight. Okay, so at this point, they've decided to just sort of run away. We can go ahead and trade down, because we are always going to come out slightly ahead there. So once they capture, we capture. We can either try and run both of these pawns up the side of the board or force something on this side as well. All right, white to move. Definitely scary back here. Our king has decided that it didn't want to be tucked away and hidden. It wanted to play with everybody else. So we definitely have to be very careful there. If we take a look, we're actually in some threatening position here, because even after capturing, we can go ahead and potentially get our own queen lost in the game. So we'll take a look. Take a look to see what's available, and we will realize that we have this capture. This capture is not so great because of all of the options that they have to attack us. This knight is in a lot of danger. This pawn is in a lot of danger. So what do we potentially have that's very forcing? So if we go ahead and capture this knight, how can they respond? They're in check. They can't move their king away. So they might move this rook back just to block it for a second. So we'll go ahead and take that as well. And we'll take a look to see what they can do. They still have to move the king. Can't move the king anywhere. They have to block it again. So maybe they move this rook all the way back down, at which point we're able to capture, and the king cannot block it anymore. And then we get to deliver a nice checkmate. All right, let's keep it going. Learning a lot of things here. So again, we're in a very peculiar situation where we want to make sure that we're not going to be in any danger. So everything should be very forcing here. It's not quite mate in one, but it is definitely not a position we want to hang out in. Let's see if there's anything that we can do. Look at captures really fast. This doesn't necessarily help us. Definitely opens this up as a possibility because it's going to be protected. Our pawns aren't able to do anything. This bishop is sort of trapped. Same thing with this rook. Same thing with this rook. A little bit more flexibility, not a lot. So if we don't have that, let's look to see if we have any checks available. And we do. So if we come all the way down here, the king can't move away. So the king has to either block it or capture the queen. And who doesn't want to capture the queen? We'll come down here, capture the queen really easily. But then we have this rook that comes up, and we're able to capture again with nothing to block, no way of moving away. We are going to win the game. Or at least the puzzle. You would have had to get to that position in the game in order to win it. Moving on. All right, very, very similar to the last few things that we've been looking at. Let's take a look. So we have a lot of checks on this back rank that we're able to do, and we're able to go ahead and capture that rook to give that check. Now it immediately seems good because we're capturing and we're giving a check, but the queen comes in and very easily kind of ruins that plan for us. But what is that queen now doing that if it were to be in this position, it wouldn't be able to? So this is where we're looking for our captures, right? So if we were to capture this now, that's going to be a problem. If we were to capture this, captures, and then captures, not good for us at all whatsoever. But if we reverse that and we say captures here, gives a check, we can either move down, which we can capture again, captures. At a certain point, they're either throwing away all the material to avoid giving us this rook, or they're just going to give us this rook. So if we come and check, captures, captures, going to be up material. All right. Black to move in this situation. We've been talking about this from the standpoint of past pawns. We really have to be careful of what we were allowing. We want to make sure that we're guarding all of those opportunities. You know, we're 3 pawns down in this endgame. Definitely not a position you want to find yourself. But I think that in this particular instance, being 3 pawns down is not going to hurt you. So if we take a quick look, the king is very confined here. So the king has this move and this move only. So if there's a way that we can both check and hit both of these squares, then we're going to win the game. So while we do have this available, it's going to be captured. We can't capture anything else with our king. The only other move that we really have is going to be king h8. If we move here, you'll notice that the king can't move to the side, and we're hitting the only squares that it can move to. Nothing to block it. All right, take a look here. So definitely fairly early in the game. Let's take a quick look at captures that we have available. So we can capture this. Doesn't necessarily work. Probably is just your free pawn. We can take this. We can take this over here. We can take this pawn. We can take this knight. We can take this pawn. Probably not a great idea. And I think that is it for captures. A threatening move, right? So we have this. The knight can capture, we can capture, they can capture. Doesn't necessarily work. What do we have for checks? So from a check standpoint, we already looked at this. Doesn't necessarily work, right? We looked at this a little bit. Doesn't necessarily work. Doesn't seem like we have anything else over in that area. What if we were to move this queen along this diagonal? So we can move all the way down. Doesn't necessarily help us. Yes, we can win that rook, but at the expense of a queen, probably not the best move. If instead of that, though, we just come here, we are protected by the bishop, and there's no way for the king to run. 100 level problem, maybe a little bit underrated. All right, so in this situation, we are in check, right? We want to make sure that we have to deal with that, but we also want to deal with the fact that we are 2 pawns that they're trying to promote, and they have a knight as well. So if we were to come down here, they're going to want to try and move their knight away because they can't protect it with the king. If they go ahead and move it back, or they move it here, well, if they move it here, we can just go ahead and capture. So if we attack the knight as we're moving away from check, they're likely to move it back here so they can protect it for just a little bit longer. And just as we had a few puzzles back, we're going to have a very interesting case of the king can really only move to these 2 positions. And if the king can only move to those 2 positions, what do we potentially have available for us in terms of checking? Well, we're in check right now. We have to move the king. Let's go ahead and attack here. We can actually go ahead and just capture the knight. and then we're able to even capture this pawn the next time they move up. Definitely a 100 level problem, done in potentially a strange way there. If you didn't see that, I don't blame you on potentially being slightly confused onto how they played that out. But that is going to be the end of our third session for this. A couple more to come. If you want to hang out with me live, not just see these in the single takes that they are, you can go ahead and check me out on Twitch. The link is going to be in the description. And if you have any suggestions or anything that you like to see, please let us know in the comments and we can take a look. All right. Thanks, everybody.